And you see the agenda on the screen. I would like someone to make a motion to approve the agenda.
I approve.
Anyone? All right.
Second.
Motion second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Great. All right. Let's approve from the prior meeting. Hopefully everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the prior meeting. And unless there are any changes or updates to the minutes, let's first make a motion to approve the minutes, and then we can make any amendments, additions, etc. if necessary. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. And now for the hot seat.
Charles.
Joseph?
It's at least getting Shannon off the hot seat.
Yeah, right.
Last
Thank you,
time.
Joe. Get me off the hot seat.
That's right. So, Joseph, the floor is yours, and off we go.
Thank you so much. And do you prefer Charles or Chuck?
Chuck is fine. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Of course. And feel free to call me Joe. In the spirit of that, my name is Joe Carvalho. I recently returned to DDS. I used to work in the commissioner's office, and I've rejoined to help work on a myriad of things. In part, some of my work will be dedicated and has been dedicated to this transition to the new fiscal intermediary, GT Independence. We understand that there have been challenges as we transition from our previous FIs to this new fiscal intermediary. I've met with families in all of the regions. I have discussions with case managers. We are consistently raising issues to GT Independence leadership to their attention. And we are in constant communication with G Independence, as well as our sister agencies who are also a part of this contract with us and GT Independence. So while I cannot promise outcomes myself, in my communications to families, what I have promised is advocacy. So one thing I'm happy to do here is to provide my contact information. I'm happy to leave that in the chat so people have my state cell phone number. Please keep in mind that it is a state cell phone number. So just keep in mind what you text is public record, frustrations and all. But I truly, the department as a whole, but also myself, we are all committed to making sure that we are providing as much assistance to families through this challenging transition as much as possible. So I want to at least introduce myself. Happy to answer any questions that I can. I may not have all the answers, but again, I'm not in the business of over-promising and under-delivering. I'd rather circle back and provide you accurate information. So with that said, I'm available. I will make sure to put my information in the chat, and happy to help however I can.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call on members of the committee and see what questions, comments, etc. they may have. And I'm just looking at my screen from right to left. So Shannon, I know you probably have spoken to Joseph and you're familiar with Joseph, but in terms of the council itself, Lori, you're the first one up. Any questions, comments?
I do. I thank you, Joe, for being here and appreciate the help. We've had difficulties with them, and our situation was a little different. I've been providing transportation only to my son to go to his program and come home, which should be a very straightforward thing. And it's been a nightmare and been going on, and I've dealt with enrollment specialists, operations managers. I'm now with the self-determination support staff, and it's still going on. And what's most frustrating is it starts with, and in my opinion, that front line who's taking those first calls, misinformation, lack of information. They say, I'm putting this in notes, so when I call back to follow, they're going to see it. It's not there. There's so much internal miscommunication within them, and I don't feel they're really trained to what they should be to be making those calls. They could simply say, let me get back to you. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they call you back, and sometimes they don't. But with our case, I was told I was supposed to be, first, I was supposed to be a caregiver and take the DDS required courses, and our case manager said, no, you don't have to take those. You're the parent. You're just providing transportation. Then they told me I had to be a vendor, so other paperwork comes over. Then I wasn't comfortable with him being an EOR because, again, how could he be an EOR when we're plenary guardians? So much later, I found out about having somebody be a representative for him, and that will be my husband. That's still, I just maybe less than 2 weeks ago, passed that paperwork in and say, please give me a timestamp. Where is it going and who's going to let me know that this is now in place, or do I have to follow with another call? So it's always babysitting step by step by step. And you think you get one place and you don't. I just need mileage. So it's very straightforward, right? And it's been approved through DDS. It's been approved through the enrollment specialist. They were just going to have IT open up the pay period, and just Friday, the determination person says, I have to get approvals. Luckily, we have a very great case manager. She's very active. She's escalated this up. She's involved with these. I put her on, so we're having multiple conversations. And she's, you need to get back to me by Tuesday. Well, today's Thursday. It's still open. So, and what you hear in the community, even worse, when it's direct care people, they're losing staff.
Right.
It's terrible. But I am happy DDS is involved with escalating and advocating, and appreciate your efforts 100%. My one question is, are other agencies other than DDS having this problem too, with fiduciary type problems with them as well?
So first off, Lori, thank you. And I'm sorry you've been dealing with these challenges. And I know it's not isolated to just you. So,
Yeah.
so I appreciate you sharing your experience. And I also quickly just want to give a shout out to the case managers, because from starting back in August here at DDS, I have been nothing but impressed by the level of dedication and follow-up of case managers with respect to advocating on behalf of the
Yeah.
families that they're serving. So just it 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 reinforces my belief in good people trying to help families served by the department. Um, Forgive me in that I've just blanked on your question. I'm so sorry, Lori.
I was wondering if other agencies besides
Yes.
DBS are also experiencing the same type problems too, because I was so hopeful, guardedly hopeful, when the
Yeah.
Connecticut team was coming on board. And again, it starts just with that bottom line, your first call representatives and their phone system, forget it. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
So
goes on
so
and
to
on.
So to answer your question, the short answer is yes. And we're
Mhm.
in communication with our sister agencies as well. So there are three agencies that are party to this contract. It's the Department of Social Services, the Department of Developmental Services, and Aging and Disability Services. In terms of the number of people served or impacted by service delivery system, I believe it goes DSS, then DDS, then ADS. So we're like the middle sister of those sister agencies. But yes, we are not the only agency that are experiencing these issues, and that's why DDS on its own is meeting with GT, and DDS is meeting with its sister agencies to communicate, compare notes, making sure that we're working in lockstep so that we are working as effectively with this partner as possible, because this contract is through another 2 years. So that's the answer to your question.
Okay, so Lori, any additional comments or questions for Joe?
No, I'm kind of curious, what is their response when DDS is advocating? Like, what are they doing about it? Because it doesn't seem to be to me, it seems to be more and more confusing every time I talk with them. And again, it's a lack of the internal process of them, because if you talk with one and not, again, higher level people, it's not communicated back. It's miscommunicated. There's errors in their responses. So obviously, I know they didn't read my emails, and I do keep them short and sweet because I know attention spans just aren't in there, with the volume I'm sure they're getting. What do they say? What can they say? I guess, I don't know. It's very frustrating. It's just so very frustrating to work with them. We work with Sunset Shores, and we never had a problem before. I wish they could have taken this. I think it would have been a good thing for Connecticut, but
And I appreciate that. So, I mean, it depends on the situation, right? I mean, we
Mhm.
receive lots of inquiries from families and from case managers alike, with a broad variety of concerns. So to say what do they say to any given situation, it just depends on the situation.
yeah.
But I mean, being perfectly candid, yeah, no, we have to escalate these concerns, and sometimes we
Mhm.
even have to escalate again. Sometimes more than once, and that's challenging. I have to contend with an inbox that is growing. So we appreciate folks who keep it short and sweet. So thank you, Lori.
Yes.
But sometimes it's not always possible to do that. So I do
Yeah.
recognize that too. Um, so I can sympathize with anyone who has a large volume of work. However, that doesn't excuse the urgency of providing services and fulfilling our obligations to families. So until that happens, we're going to stay on the case.
Yeah.
So we just continue to follow up until resolution is reached. And if resolution isn't reached, we will continue to follow up.
Okay, then I definitely appreciate it. I actually just put in a complaint. Okay, my case manager had given us a link or gave me a link to do that. I did that because I finally got a paper check, 3 of them. And the stub to that was very confusing. It was a dollar amount, but the hours were 15 point something. And I'm like, what? But yet it's all confusing. And when I called in, they said, well, the paper, what they're seeing on their end is not that. The amount was correct, but the pay stub is not. I'm thinking, well, how? So I've asked for clarification. I've been waiting about 2.5 months now for that clarification. So
Understood.
and I will follow it. And again, I'm just very thankful for DDS being so strongly advocating and realize, it's going to take time and I don't know what, but I sincerely appreciate it. And case managers are stepping up.
Well,
Just wonderful.
we appreciate that, and I couldn't echo the thanks and the shout outs to case managers enough. So I just need to say that again. Um, and I don't expect anyone to feel better about this until solutions are being reached. So, but I would be remiss if I just didn't say I'm sorry that you've been experiencing challenges. So to that end, I am sorry, and we will work on it. So again, I have not yet, but I have not forgotten. I will put my contact information in the chat before I
Okay.
leave.
Yeah, no, I appreciate, and I can certainly follow up and, for things myself. I always think of, what about people that can't, the individuals or the families that for many varieties of reasons just cannot do that. So, which is why even though mine is just mileage, I'm still going to put you to that task because I could be in that same boat where I can't advocate for my child one day. And I would hope somebody else is taking that lead and doing these things. So again, thank you.
Of course.
All right. Karen, you're next.
Okay, thank you, Joe, for being here. I have a great case manager, thank goodness for that, because she's kind of the buffer for me as well. So one question, I guess it's just the way, it just doesn't seem to be efficient. With Sunset Shores, any change had to be authorized by me. Any hours had to be authorized by me. So just for the heck of it, I didn't authorize anything for a week. I didn't sign anything. I didn't get on. She got paid perfectly well. And they accept my son's signature, which is kind of funny. He'll sign anything you put in front of him. Not that, I mean, I'm a very good person, but it's a little nerve wracking that it just seems to be so loose. I just don't know how is it being how are employees being watched? I was told, I think at the beginning, that it was all going to be based on GPS and they'll know where she is and what she's doing. And that's not true at all for us anyway. So um, Sunset Shore sometimes would drive us crazy with the amount of, they would call me about every little thing, but I always felt like I was really in control of the program. And now I don't feel like I'm in control of the program. I feel that my employee, she always just has Christopher sign. Nobody's asking for my signature. I go on it and I look at it, but I don't approve anything. It's already approved because she got Christopher's signature. So I only have one employee, which is good, but I'm
So
going to have more.
your employee got, forgive me, is this your son?
Yes, my son
So
Christopher.
your employee had gotten your son's signature.
Correct.
Okay.
And frankly, it doesn't even, I go on and there's no place for me to sign because he writes really big.
Hello. This is Pickup.
And
I've got a eggplant farm.
he's got Chris on there and it's approved. So it's just a little nerve wracking that I don't feel like I have the control that I did. So that's number one. Number two, is it based on GPS? Because go ahead.
My understanding is that yes, it is. I believe their electronic visit verification system does have GPS associated with it. If I'm being perfectly frank, I don't know the ins and outs of EVV, so I'd be reluctant to offer too much of qualification as to what that system entails. But my understanding is that yes, that information should be there. So I can circle back and confirm that. And if you'd like, again, I'll put my information in the chat. And if you want to send me a note, I'm happy to look into these
Okay.
more specific concerns and try to review that with
Yeah.
the appropriate team members to make sure that we,
Yeah.
are confident that information is being approved and approved correctly and
By the
approved in a
right
way that it
person.
approved in a way that's consistent with the informed choice of the family.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds good. And of course, you know that there's a GT Independence Forum on Facebook. And I mean, it doesn't help anybody become confident about the system because every day on there, there's something different. You did get, they did get one actually positive thing. They said the parent called in. She had problems with the app on Friday and Saturday, and she got 3 phone calls back to fix it, and it immediately got fixed. So the answer came out that this is another mom that says, I feel like they pick a name out of a hat and say, let's give this person exceptional service so we get a good review, but only for a week or so until we can get something else settled. And I think I've seen that before. Like sometimes somebody gets right on it and it gets solved, and then other times you just don't hear from anybody. So the consistency, everybody just ends up calling their case manager, and our case managers have to be going nuts because I know that they were busy before, and this is driving everybody crazy. And of course, from the parent perspective, they're wondering, sure, Sunset Shores had to be way cheaper than GT Independence. We just don't understand the reason. There wasn't a problem with Sunset Shores. I know there was with Allied. I know they had a lot of Sunset Shores was flawless. I'm telling you. If GT Independence could go to Sunset Shores and sit down with them and say, tell me how you organized this system and what did you do to make it so efficient? It would just solve a myriad of problems because I mean, my son's 30 now, so I've been on the system a long time, and I just never had one problem with I'm sorry, with Sunset Shores, except when I went over budget, like on travel, they would immediately call me and say, you're out of travel money. And then I would have to call my case manager. But I don't have to do that anymore. Nobody ever calls me on anything. It's like everything is perfect, and it's very nerve-wracking. So that's probably my biggest issue. I just want to know what is the oversight to make sure that, people aren't double dipping. Like, for instance, I didn't know that our employees now get sick days. I didn't know that. And all of a sudden she's got PT, what is it, Lori, that they put on?
PTO.
Right,
Yeah.
PTO. And I'm
Mhm.
yelling at her going, what the heck is PTO? She says, well, we get sick days. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I'm sure we got some kind of memo on it, but I didn't see it. Now I know that that happens. So how many? And is it based on the hours? Is it based on longevity? There's just a
So
lot
Karen,
of questions.
the PTO was a result of the contract negotiations
Mhm.
with the union. So
Well, when did it get implemented? Because I don't remember it being with Sunset Shores.
it was implemented. You, Shannon, you may know exactly when it was implemented, but the contract was implemented, I know this year.
Okay.
And for at least
Okay.
this year, it may have been prior to that, but there's so many hours each year you carry over for how long you work. And then there's bump, and also it has the contract itself has scheduled increases in terms of compensation
Right.
and the rate, and holidays that are off, et cetera. So, uh, Shannon, do you have a copy of the union contract, or Eunice, do you have a copy that you could share with the council?
I
I
do
have
not
one.
I do not have a copy of their union contract.
All right,
That
I do not.
I will dig up my copy.
Okay,
It's
that'd
out
be
on the
great.
website. It's out on a website
Yeah.
somewhere.
Okay.
But you'll see it's all built into the union contract.
Okay.
In
I
terms
mean,
of,
I don't doubt that, I didn't know what it stood for, and I feel like an idiot with my my own employee, and she's saying, well, that's okay. Christopher signed it. I'm like, oh, okay.
well, there you go.
There you go.
All right. So Karen, anything else before we move on to Gil?
And Karen, very
Well,
quickly, feel free to send me those specific questions related to your
okay,
specific
I
situation
will.
by email, and I'm happy
I
to work
will.
with the team to get you a
And just out of
response.
curiosity, Lori, do you sign it? Not your son?
My son cannot sign his full name.
Okay.
He could write David, but what I said to him, this is not a legal signature. So
Yeah.
he's putting an X.
Oh, because
If
my son
I
just
can-
puts Chris. That's it.
No, yeah, if he will put the X, sometimes I can't get him to even put the X, and I'm putting the X, to be quite honest with you, because it's like, what am I supposed to do? My
Okay.
husband, again, will become the representative helper or whatever that title is. I sent that document in, I still don't have confirmation of it, and I'm just kind of leaving it with, it's Alyssa that I'm working with through the self-determination. Because I asked her to let me know, who's gonna let me know? I want them to let me know. I'm tired of babysitting them for a very simple, straightforward question. So
All
that's,
right.
that's what we're doing. He's doing an X.
Okay.
All right. Gil?
Okay, our daughter's now in a group home, so we're not affected, but when we did pay, we used Sunset Shores and never had an issue. They were really fantastic.
Okay. And Arlene, any questions, comments?
No, because my daughter is in also a group home, so it hasn't been an issue.
Okay. Now I know Marina, you're on mute. I wasn't sure if you had any questions or comments for Joseph. But we'll wait on Marina. Eunice, there's also Christine. And Christine is
A member of the public, a parent.
member. Okay. We're just gonna hold, Christine, we're just gonna hold off.
Hi.
I'm just gonna ask a couple of questions and then we'll let you fire away at Joe. All right.
Okay.
So, Joe.
We have Sue Bastian here also, Charles.
Oh,
Sorry.
Sue is
good.
on. Okay, okay, I'm not seeing her. Sue?
Hi, it doesn't pertain to me, thank you.
Okay. All right. So, Joe, a couple things. One is, what's the purpose of the GPS?
I think I said it earlier that I am not specifically aware of all the ins and outs with respect to electronic visit verification, so I would like to
Yeah, I'm just
answer
saying,
that question offline.
yeah, it's kind of like, why, like, what's so great about having a GPS with EVV? Because remember, the person has an app, like the aide has an app, and I guess the only thing that the GPS would say, are they really in the state of Connecticut? But the question, it isn't so much are they in the state of Connecticut? The question is, are they rendering care to the individual with a disability? Right? So the person with a disability would have to have an app in order for both GPSs to say, hey, we're in proximity to each other, right? Because that's what's supposed to happen. So I have no clue what the purpose of the GPS is for the system.
No,
Uh,
and thanks for the question, Chuck. I just don't want to give you
Yeah, that's fine. No, that's fine.
misinformation.
Yeah, so a couple of things. One is, and of course it just popped up this week. One person on their app, in their app, they show 40 hours, 40 hours, 40 hours, 40 hours, yet they're not getting paid for 40 hours. So the one thing that GT should never, ever, ever screw up is a person's pay. You can do everything else. You could be miserable service-wise, but if you screw up their pay, people are not happy, to say the least. Just like if the state of Connecticut, Joe, you got a paycheck and they said, oh yeah, well, we only paid you $1 this week, but yeah, we still want you to work and do that. So I will send you that issue in terms of that. Another issue that I have with them, I'm actually sending them a certified letter on this issue out to the corporate headquarters. And this is a very niche-y type issue. In the state of Connecticut, there's no federal income tax withheld for difficulty of care payments where the person resides in the house So my daughter resides with her mother. Mom's the caregiver. I'm her legal guardian. And lo and behold, there's no federal income tax for the Medicaid waiver payments. However, she also has a CFC budget. And her mother's also on the CFC budget, and she can bill that line on the CFC budget. I have attempted to try and discern from DSS, et cetera, that did they ever get a private letter ruling from the IRS saying, hey, by the way, non-Medicaid waiver payments under CFC are the same as difficulty of care payments, hence no federal income tax can be withheld. The state of California did, in fact, get a private letter ruling. The state of Washington did, in fact, get a private letter ruling. To my knowledge, the state of Connecticut has not gotten a private letter ruling. People had to go back and amend their income tax returns, and then they actually got refunds from the IRS, but they had to prove a ton of information. It was quite onerous for them to get refunds. And so they're not withholding federal income tax on those difficulty of care payments, saying, oh, well, the person lives in the house, but there is no legal basis for them to not withhold federal income tax. But that's sort of a little bit of a thorn in my side on that. And I'm basically sending them a letter saying, hey, if we're held liable, and my daughter is the employer of record, by the way. So I'm her support person, kind of like Lori, your husband will be the support person. So I'm the support person. My daughter's the employer of record. Going to signing off on the app, once again, with Allied, I used to be able, I would have to make any changes or approve any changes for timesheets, et cetera. So if there was like, oh, we had an overlap, oh, we got to fix something, I could actually fix it. My daughter cannot fix anything. And so she just signs, she scribbles her little finger, and that's it. Boom, we're approved the hours. Now, she has one aide, it's a mother, her brother works with her, but her one main aide, it's been with us for like 5 years. So there's never been an issue, but I don't know how good that system really is, where if I had to sign off for her, nobody would ever track me down. I mean, I'm not there with her signing off. I mean, I don't live with her, right? So I'm the support person. But her mother can't be the support person because, the whole thing with legal guardians and getting paid and CFC anyway, way on that. So there is that. There used to be a little bit of control on my part, so to speak, even though I wasn't happy about amending all that stuff. I had more work, but it got fixed. Now I have no control, nothing. Like if somebody says, oh, we have an overlap, I'm like, oh, we got an overlap. Nothing I can do about it. You have to go in or call GT or do that to do that. And in terms of I mean, I think it got sold a bill of goods, frankly. Like, if you read all the articles about GT being replacing Allied, it was like this was going to be the best thing since crunchy peanut butter, rainbows, and unicorns were going to happen. And on top of that, there's a penalty in the contract, as I understand it. You know, that, hey, if GT doesn't perform, the state can go in and penalize them. Well, we are now, what, they take over in March? We're now in October. And I just don't see GT improving any significantly. If you call in, now they've changed their voicemail messaging. But if you call in, maybe you get a call back. Now it's 24 to 48 hours. Right?
May I ask how? How have they changed their voicemail process?
Well, the voicemail used to be a fairly standard voicemail, and they went through, you had to go through the menu, etc. Now there's another voice that comes on the voicemail. I know it's just suddenly a change. I couldn't tell you who the new voice is, but now it's like, 24 to 48 hours. Now they've kind of retreated on, well, we're good, we're not that good. Right? Let's not have expectations of anyone getting right back to you. Right?
And what was the first set of hours that used to be on the former voicemail?
Your call is very important to us. We're gonna return your call within the order it was received, because otherwise it's like a government. I don't want to say all government agencies, but like if you call SSI or Social Security, you might be on hold for a couple hours, or DSS, right? Whereas here, I will admit they do have the option where you get a call back, and you hit 1 or 2, you get a call back. But whether you get a call back and when you get the call back is kind of, sometimes I get the call back, sometimes I don't get the call back. The other question, which, is there an email address that you can send to GT? Because there seems to be different email addresses from GT.
I'll put that in the chat as well. And there's a customer service inbox. If you do not get responses from that inbox, please let me know. And
Okay.
we will escalate in other ways. But that is a box we always try to check. And actually, I'm glad you mentioned that inbox, because that's something I failed to mention in my opening bit. So whenever there's an issue, I absolutely encourage you to use that GT inbox, which I will put in the chat in a little bit. Internally at DDS, there is an escalation process. That escalation process is submitted by or initiated by case managers for the most part, and they put it into a list of issues that is monitored by both DDS as well as GT. And when GT goes ahead and puts in a report saying, all right, this issue is resolved, sometimes that's contrary to our understanding and what the family is reporting or what the case manager is reporting, in which case DDS leadership then follows up again. So it's a way of internally tracking issues. However, sending messages to that customer service inbox is very important, because that helps GT on their end confirm when they absolutely received that information. On DDS's side, what we like to try to do is map that in this set of, for lack of a better word, a tracker, so that we on our side have a sense of how long has this issue been going on for. So just wanted to flag that quick process. Again, shout out to the case managers who do this on top of the many other things that they do. But it's a multi-pronged approach at raising these concerns to GT in the spirit of trying to get as quick of a resolution as possible.
Okay.
So forgive me for interrupting you, Chuck.
No. So just going over, like, what's the purpose of the GPS? I mean,
yep.
I don't really see a purpose there, by the
Chuck,
way.
could I intervene on that point?
Sure.
Just because I'm assuming that's tracking the mileage, such as, let's say my daughter's taking my son bowling. So her mileage is going to start from leaving my house to bowling. If they were to stop at McDonald's or a store after leaving bowling, so once she gets to bowling, it's transportation from home to bowling. That's one mileage entry. The second one is going to be from bowling, transporting to, let's say McDonald's. That's a second, a total separate entry. And then the third one would be transportation from McDonald's to home. So they're tracking the time that they're actually driving them somewheres. So separate from the full care.
Well,
That might be, I mean, I,
But is, but is
I
it
don't know
based
that
on
for sure.
GPS, Lori, or is it, or the
I-
the therapist is just writing it in? Because that's what mine does. She just writes in.
Yeah, well, I do it, I'm on an app, so if I just bring David to program, I stay there on site, and then I drive
Right.
him home. My
But-
daughter, to be honest with you, she says ridiculous, I gotta be asking him to do this, and, it's multiple entries she would have to make each and every time, with each, starting the car with him, ending the car with him, starting, so each event on, even on the same day. Yeah, I don't think that it's GPS, it's adding the mileage in, and then it's tracking it, and then David has to prove it.
Right.
no.
Which is crazy.
So
Well,
I
I
don't
guess
think it's an
what-
actual tracking of GPS, it's a
No, it's not tracking.
accountability in
It's they
another way,
just,
correct?
and it's line by line where it used to be just one form for Sunset Shores for the week.
Right,
And
so-
we're
so like-
done.
Karen, for you with Christopher, if she's taking him all out in the community,
She
multiple
is.
places, every single time, they're
Exactly.
stopping and starting that car, that's another mileage entry.
Exactly. And I
Well-
hear him yelling, no signing, no signing, no signing, because he's got to sign every line.
So we'll find out what the GPS does or doesn't do. I mentioned the Medicaid or the CFC versus the Medicaid waiver issue. Mentioned the payroll, which I'm now sending an email out where, okay, I got all these screenshots showing all the app hours, but then then you can run a report that shows it that breaks down by individual aid, and that's sort of a positive part, shows what they have, but I have questions about that because there's this column that says compliant, non-compliant. But then when I look at the non-compliant, they pay for hours that are non-compliant. But what does it mean to be non-compliant? I have no clue. There's no like little footnote saying, "Oh,
Like with a
non-compliant."
legend.
There's no legend. It's like, well, what does it mean? Well, you got paid for non-compliant hours, and you got paid for compliant hours, but then other hours you didn't get paid for non-compliant hours. It's very very confusing on that end. So I pulled all the pay stubs out, etc. But I'm glad there's an inbox. The only concern I have about the inbox is that yet I've sent stuff to inbox or to other, I responded. I often believe it's like a black hole that it just kind of goes in and gets absorbed by the universe, and you don't quite get back. Or, for example, on the actual portal for the employer, it talks about how do you want to be communicated with. Right? You can say, oh, email, when, etc. I send them out an issue, and what they do is, it's interesting. I've sent them some things on the portal, and then magically things would appear. Like I wouldn't get a response to me. It would just be, oh, I have an issue with, let's say, with my son getting hired, and then suddenly, poof, they would suddenly send stuff. But it's kind of like there's nobody there to be assigned to you that's handling the problem from beginning to end. So like Lori's problem could probably very easily be resolved if there was a dedicated support person who picked the ball up at GT and said, okay, this is the issue, and they ran with it from then to from then to it was resolved. Instead, as Lori experienced, you get different people answering the different questions, and they tell you one thing, then somebody else tells you something different. And there are I'm not sure they have notes or not. So I'm not quite sure how organized they all are. And if they bit off more than they could chew with the contract. I'm just kind of curious, Joseph, are they even close to being entering the penalty phase of the contract? By the way, can we get a copy of the contract? I assume it's a public document, right? It's a state document. I don't want to do a freedom of information stuff. Like Washington, D.C. has you can get their GT contract online down there.
Yep. So I'll have to follow up with you on your last question. I want to make sure that I'm doing things in a consistent manner, and I just want to make sure I do that. Forgive me, would you remind me your other question, Chuck?
Well, are they even close to being penalized? In other words, the only thing that's going to stop, the only thing typically that changes behaviors, like with like a business to business entity. So you have the state of Connecticut, you got GT, and the state of Connecticut says to GT, hey, we got a penalty clause in here. We're about to enforce this. You're going to lose money. Versus we got a contract and, well, maybe you fix it, maybe you don't. Well, God, good luck, God bless. So are they, what's the breach mechanism where they suddenly say, whoops, the state's going to claw back or penalize GT?
Sure. So I will speak to that broadly. Again, I'm not an attorney, so I'd like to be mindful of speaking about contracts between the state and a business partner. What I do know is that there was a period of transition, I think that ended in July. And I believe afterwards, GT is supposed to be reporting to the departments and has metrics with respect to their performance. So that is currently under review. And for now, that's where I would leave that.
Okay. All right. So there's a review process. DDS is looking at it. And I assume the contract spells it out as to what metrics have to be in conformity with whatever it is that they report. All right. So we do have a member of the public. I don't know if she's interested in asking any questions to Joseph on GT.
Hi. Yeah, we use GTI, and we've had very similar experiences. We have one problem that has haunted us since we've got 2 new employees. I've probably made 15 phone calls. I've asked them to bring it up to a higher level, and they've never called me back at that level. It's basically very simple. You're supposed to do the 1199 training, and they've not put these 2 individuals' names into the basket at 1199 to so they can register. Simple, very simple. Put them in, and I've called both sides, 1199 and GTI, and I just can't get them to do it. Nobody will do it. 1190 says they've never put it in. And I noticed that with another employee, it was done by a different customer service rep, and boom, everything was done, everything was included. But this particular person did 2 of them. They didn't get their packets, and they never got registered. And this has been a month, and nobody has. And I have literally made at least 15 phone calls. Never got a supervisor to call me back. And so at this point, if they're just not going to be able to stay after 90 days because I can't get anyone to call me. And 1199 for the longest time, I don't know if it's true, was not given a contact person at GTI. They were not allowed to have a contact number for a person at GTI. So when they have issues with this, they don't have anyone to contact. They have to bring it up to the top, and then the top has to go over to DDS, and then DDS has to talk to GTI. They can't call GTI and say, John Smith and Mary Joseph can't get on. Can you please add them? Because I'm getting phone calls from the parents saying, caregivers, that they can't get their people registered. And this is very simple stuff. As far as the GPS in prior years with Allied, the GPS was basically so that people would register, would clock in at the site of the home or the site where they're supposed to be, and not clock in at the Walmart or clock in at their own homes. They wanted to know that the person was with the individual. And so that was always there. So if you're off-site and you're remote in a doctor's office, or you pick up at a park or something, you have to just say, start a shift at park, ended at home. And so that was initially what the GPS was, at least with Allied, that was what that was for. I don't know if that's still what it's for, but initially GPS was to make sure that the client and the employee were together, and the employee wasn't clocking in and just saying they're on. And now, especially with GTI, with us not having any control or very minimal control at all, there's really no control over, making sure that they're clocking in correctly and all this other stuff. That's important, that they're clocking in the proper places, because we have so little control over the portal. Is basically does nothing. It's just there.
Right.
And Christine, you mentioned 1199. Is that the union?
That's the union.
That's union.
And they're frustrated as all get out because they want obviously people to take their class, and it's required within 90 days that you complete that orientation. And I have two people that have been here over a month and have not even been able to get in.
Joe, so if I can ask this question vis-a-vis the union. So all the people that are employed, whether private, private hires, et cetera, are members of the union. And the union is supposed, as I understand it, unions are supposed to advocate for their employees and make sure their employees are, being paid and taken care of, et cetera. They got the contract, on and on. Is 1199, the leadership at 1199, what are they doing vis-a-vis GT and all the issues? Because it seems like we're advocating on behalf of our employees. And I think, well, employees are paying dues to the leadership. They should be carrying the water here.
With respect, Chuck, I'm going to not speak on behalf of 1199 leadership.
All right. Because as I'm saying,
Chuck, what may be really scary about that is that 1199 is just happy because they're paying anybody anything. Nobody's got complaints because we have no control.
Well, it's not, removing control from the employer or the support person is an issue, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think by having us, basically, we're out of the loop. We can't do anything.
Exactly.
There's nothing we can do about it. But that raises another issue. I'm going to talk to somebody at the union and say, well, what are you guys doing? Right? People are paying dues. I mean, what are you doing? All right. So Christine, did I miss anybody?
And Christine, I just want to make sure I didn't miss a question that you were hoping to ask of me.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is how do I get to a supervisor? They call me after 5 p.m. I get a response. It's always the lowest level. When they can't reach anybody because everyone's gone. It's after 7 o'clock wherever they are. They never call back during the day. You can't reach anybody during the day. Like he said, now it's two days. Sorry for the sounds in the background. It's at least 2 days out. And I don't have a further, there's no fax, there's no email that gets responded to. I have no way to contact the next. I'm not used to not being able to reach the next level. And I asked them specifically, can I please, this needs to be resolved. In 60 days, they're out. They're out because of an orientation with the union, not because they're bad workers or because of whatever. I need to find a way that I can get a supervisor or someone that's actually going to put the names in the pot so that they can actually register. How do I get that name? Nobody knows. Nobody gives you a name or an extension, and nobody calls you back.
I'm going to give you my name, my email address, and my extension, and we will assist, and we will continue to assist until you reach resolution.
That'd be great. Thank you.
You're going to give that to Eunice so we all have it?
I'll put it in the chat so you have it here, and then I'll provide it to Eunice as well. Well, she already has it, but she can share that around to folks by email as well, just to make sure folks have that. And just for awareness, and forgive me if I'm stating something that you all already know, but sometimes, because if you're not a state of Connecticut user, this chat goes away at the end of the meeting. So if you're looking for my information, please make sure to grab it before the end of the meeting. I have entered the customer service inbox information into the chat. So that email account is there. I was about to look at my phone to confirm my state cell phone number. It's a new number. I didn't want to give you the wrong one, but I was also trying to listen to Christine's question, so I didn't want to miss that. So I'll find my number. I'll put that in the chat, and I'm happy to work with you until you get resolution. I'm not promising an outcome, but I am going to promise some advocacy here. So we'll continue to work with you until you get to where you need to be.
Thank you.
Of course.
So I think I've covered everybody in terms of questions for Joe. And I don't think we were too hard on you, Joe.
Chuck, is that all? Is that all you got, Chuck?
Yeah. Well, a big question is the state going to analyze the outgoing money versus when we had Sunset Shores and Allied versus GTE? I mean, literally, because I think employees might be getting paid for hours not worked. I mean, my employee's been with me a long time and whatever, but new employees, if nobody's looking I would love to know. I mean, it's none of my business, of course, but if the state finds that, there's like a lot more money going out than it was before, then there's a lot of problems.
And
Yeah,
it's going
so
out of your child's budget.
Exactly.
I have another Adriana. Is Adriana on the line?
She is.
Okay, so I saw her raise her hand. Adriana, did you have a question for Joe? Is Adriana in the chat, maybe?
Adriana, you're on mute.
Well, Joe, one last thing. While Adriana is unmuting, I also noticed that there are reports, so finally I could see a budget report, right? But I was looking at the budget reports and it's a little confusing at first, because it says this budget report covers the time period of October 1st to October 30th.
Right.
And I'm like, huh? How does it cover October 1st to October 30th if we're on October 17th?
Right.
I mean, it's, then I started to look day after day. It apparently updates on a daily, almost like on a weekly or daily basis on that report. It's very confusing. It's like, how do I know what's left in the budget? At first, I'm like, oh, this is doing great because then I'm like, how could this be? How do you, I don't understand why they do that. To me, it was confusing. And then I caught it and I'm still not sure. It looks like you got to check it every day if you want to really keep on top of your budget. Anyway, Adriana, are you unmuted?
Appears that she may be having some problems.
She must be. I saw her trying to type in the chat and it's not coming up either.
Well, Adriana, if it's a question for me, I'm about to put my information in the chat. Forgive me for repeating myself a bunch of times, but I just want to make sure that you heard me say it. So please feel free to reach out directly and I'm happy to help.
Eunice, why am I not seeing the chat?
You have to click on the chat button up at the top of the screen.
I thought
Yeah.
I did.
It's either at the top or the bottom. In my case, I'm on an iPad.
Oh, okay, got it. It's on the top of mine. That's why I couldn't find it.
Joe,
Okay.
I had one question. Is
She's
she coming
driving
on?
a good signal.
She's, yeah.
Driving, not a good signal.
Okay. Joe,
All
I
right.
had one question. We're talking about if it ever got to the level that the state is now going to penalize them for all these issues. Would that have any direct effect to the individuals and families? In other words, like almost freezing what GTI can do, such as if they're at that point, can family or an individual onboard new caregivers? Or would they be, how, you know what I'm saying? Is it just a money issue? Or would they be prevented from, let's say, bringing on somebody new until some of these issues are resolved?
Forgive me, Lori. I'm not sure if I'm understanding your question. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. So let's say if the state says now we're going to penalize GT independence, does that have any fallout for the families and individuals that maybe they would be prevented from, let's say, bringing on a new hire because they're they're being monitored, in other words? So would that prevent them, GT independence, from starting a new caregiver being brought into a circle?
By the department enforcing the contract?
By GTI, would they be, and it might be, maybe you just don't even know that until that might happen, but.
So I'm a little reluctant to go out
Joe,
too far.
I'll bail you out on this. Here's
Okay.
my suggestion. If the state actually said to GT, and if it got to the point where the state said to GT, we're penalizing you, right? Because your metrics don't meet the criteria in the contract. I don't think that it's going to be, I do not believe the fallout becomes on the family. It's not going to be any worse than it was the day before. In fact, I think if they do get penalized, service will improve because they're realizing the state's serious and GT is going to lose money, right? So if, you know, if you go to an employee and you say, hey, you need to pick up your performance, otherwise you're out of the job, or, you know, we're cutting back your hours, or we're doing this or doing that, one of two things are going to happen. The person's going to leave, right? Or the person's going to pick up their performance. And so I think that if they actually penalize GT, the performance will pick up. But I don't think it'll be like, oh, we can't hire anybody. If you think about it, would they be any worse the day after, or the day after they were penalized than the day before?
Yeah,
Probably.
I would be hopeful, but I think I've just learned to be so guardedly hopeful with them that I just wondered whether that might have anything in some
Well,
way, like they're almost,
and I'm sure the state's going to do a process of what,
Yeah.
well, I don't know, but I'm sure it's going to be, hey, if you guys don't pick up the act, we're going to penalize you,
Mhm.
right? If your metrics aren't picking up, you know, we're going to go, you know, you're going to lose money. That's how businesses say, oh, wait a minute, we got to change things.
right.
Because we're going to lose the contract or something. Maybe Sunset Shores comes back.
Why doesn't GTI buy Sunset Shores for a huge amount of money and let us all go back to Sunset Shores?
Well, yeah.
Because then they might push their rules on Sunset Shores if they're
Yeah.
owned by them.
You know what? I don't know. Sunset Shores is the most efficient
strong.
company
Yeah.
I've ever dealt with.
Well, all right. So I don't think we have anything else at this point. Adriana's driving, not a good signal. But Joe's going to put we'll put his email and number.
Fix
in the
it,
chat.
Joe. Fix it, Joe. Fix it all.
Yeah. Just fix it. Just do the magic wand. We'll be good to go. And then Eunice, if you could also send Joe's contact information out in a general email, that'd be great.
Will
So,
do, and it will also be in the minutes.
Yep.
all right. So Shannon,
And Chuck, I know I didn't answer all of your questions, so please feel free to email me and we'll work to provide a response. With respect to the EVV coordinates, I'm not so sure that that's in my wheelhouse, but perhaps we can share that around to somebody who can
yeah,
respond to
I'm
that.
that's not a big issue for me because I just don't see what the purpose of the GPS is. Because it would be the GPS would have to be on the person who's rendering care.
Right.
Think about it. If I want to know that the aide and the person receiving care are in the same place, they both have to have access to the
Mhm.
internet, right? The cloud or whatever, as opposed to just the aide. Or like, okay, because like to your point, Karen or Lori, I meet her aide at Starbucks.
Right.
I don't clock in at our house. I mean, just, you know, I have my daughter driving around and we go to Starbucks, and that's where the aide picks her up.
Right.
Okay. Anyway,
And
Shannon.
that's the whole point of our program is that we can travel around. It's not like situated in one place, that our kids have the freedom to go places
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
do things.
So Shannon, I think Shannon's going to let us know all about GPS.
No, that's not what I just wanted to commend Joe in his new role and
Yes.
working very, very
Yes.
closely with the case
Yes.
manager. He's been a godsend to our case
Yes.
management staff, open door to families. So it's great to have him on board. I know he's still in the learning curve, but rapidly catching up. At every GTI meet and function, Joe is there. And like I said, he reports directly to the commissioner, so Jordan is well aware of the issues.
And he's
Um,
very brave to take this job.
Well, and just very quickly, thank you for all of your advocacy in this setting. I mean, it's really all of our work is informed by what families are experiencing on your end. So we can't make improvements unless we hear from you. So thank you for the opportunity to spend some time with you and to hear from you. I am about to hit send. Oh, I already did. So you have my information now. It's in the
Yes.
chat. Make sure to snag it before the end of the meeting. Otherwise, Eunice will send it around. And as she said, it'll be in the minutes. Really appreciate the time, everybody. And don't hesitate to contact me. And always feel free to loop me in if I can be helpful.
All right, Joe, we
Thank
really
you.
appreciate
Thank
the time
you.
you
Thank
spent
you.
with us. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Bye now. All right. So on to the chair's report. My chair's report was basically GT. I think Shannon,
That was
great job.
excellent, Charles. That was really
That was.
excellent.
No, all the kudos goes to Shannon because Shannon got Joe to
Okay.
bravely attend our meeting.
Yeah.
And so all the kudos to Shannon on that, getting someone from DDS to come and talk to the council. So on to the director's report.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Just wanted to give you some quick updates. One of the topics I wanted to bring up, and I know Karen's going to be especially interested, is day program options, especially down in the southwest portion of the West region. There are two programs, one that is expanding, changing images, and they're going to be advertising to promote that program. I spoke to the director over there and had some discussion on how to best get the word out to case managers, families, individuals, without directing business in a particular way, but just letting folks know that it's an option for our individuals down that way, because that's been a struggle. In addition to changing,
Changes
sure.
images is where, Shannon, and
That is
will they agree to do one-to-one? Those are
They
always the two
are,
issues.
okay, so it's St. Vincent's.
Okay,
And they tend to deal with folks, as you're probably well aware, more medically involved.
okay,
I
great.
think it would depend on the person's need, nursing need. They don't take a lot of individuals that have challenging behaviors, but
Right.
that may need a one-to-one. I mean, somebody with a medical situation may need a one-to-one as well, but just keep that on your radar. In addition, the Connections is reestablishing itself in the Norwalk area. That is a program that is going to be operated and had been in the past and closed during COVID by STAR, Lightening the Way down in the Norwalk area. They have traditionally supported individuals that have more significant needs, some folks from our regional center down that way. Again, I think you're going to run into the same issue with the one-to-ones in that particular program.
Okay.
But like I always tell folks, it's worth the referral, worth the call, worth the visit to check it out. So that's good news down that way. So that leads me to believe some of, although we're nowhere near repairing the staffing crisis, that things are getting a little bit better if one program's looking to reopen and another one's looking to expand. So that's good news. And for Karen and Lori, who, advocate for families, just please get the word out.
Definitely. Yeah. That's good.
I wanted to give you an update on our respite centers. We have, as you're aware, the 4 respite centers in the West region. 2 are located at our regional centers, one in Torrington and one in our Lower Fairfield Center. And then we have one in Trumbull and one in Southbury. We were in the process with some vacancies, looking to reclass positions, adding some LPNs, trading in some direct care staff so we could support some individuals with medical needs or nursing tasks that staff can't do. We are running into a little bit of a jam. It's taking some time to get the positions reclassified. I've been meeting with our central office to try to advocate to get those positions filled so we can be at full staff to avoid some overtime situations. Wanted to give you that update. Also wanted to let you know our regional positions were in pretty decent shape. At one point when I first took this role on, I often talk about the 12 case management vacancies that we had. We're, I think, down to probably 4 or 5 right now. And they're in the process of being either posted, interviewed. So that's exciting for us. And hopefully when they're filled at 100%, I will be letting you know that, and we'll be able to keep our staff in place. What happens is, as you know, folks move to other options, different caseloads, different locations. So it seems to always be a moving target.
That's because you keep promoting the good people.
I know, Rachel. In addition, we've been able to add an additional quality person. and they've been doing a lot of visits in the community because, during COVID, we kind of had to stop the visits, case management going out, resource management, quality folks. Now we have a small quality division that's focusing on certain areas in each region, and we've recently added a staff. And the person that we hired in the West region is wonderful. He has both experience in residential and day and with families. He's been spending a lot of time out in the community at different programs, giving providers suggestions, working with providers. The feedback's positive at this point from the provider world. So I'm happy about that. We continue to have a pretty large emergency list. We are dealing often with folks that are being either discharged from a provider to a hospital, or families unable to support their family member anymore and can't take them home. So that's a constant new pressure that staff are dealing with, and then trying to find a placement for those folks. The hospitals are getting pretty assertive in terms of following up with myself, my staff, and going to the commissioner's office to get people who are stuck in an ER or stuck in a hospital, get them out. But it's usually folks that have challenges, and it goes back to Karen's topic, the problems with securing one-to-one staff.
Right.
So,
And also, Shannon, I advocate in the schools. I am seeing such an influx of my clients going into hospitals, way, way more than they have in the past. I don't know what's going on. It's endemic. It's like they're, it's awful. So you are going to get a lot more kids coming up through the system after 22 that require a lot more of the intensity of services for parents. It's growing like crazy.
Yeah. And it used to be the standard 1-to-1. Now it's like, okay, the person needs a 2-to-1.
Exactly.
So, it has been a struggle, and it's a worry. Let me see what else. We still have our placement initiatives that are going on. The older adult caregiver funding is still available. We are encouraging families to use that. Part of the dilemma is, though, if someone needs a CLA or a CRS placement, trying to find that opportunity for folks. And the concern is eventually the initiative will come to an end, or there's the availability of money is no longer there, and we're not going to be able to do anything. It's not an entitlement, it's an initiative at this point in time. So if any of the families that you work with are on that list, we're really trying to encourage people to try to use that money if at all
What's
possible.
the age now, Shannon?
65.
65.
Yeah. And initially when it first started, it was within the year, and then within the fiscal year, then they expanded it. But I think, the budget's starting to tighten up a little. And the concern is if families don't use that money, and then the initiative goes away, what does that mean? So, and it means the money's not there, and it's not, something that will be required to do. So if you can get the word out there and encourage folks, and I know it's a catch-22 because if you can't find that right placement, but, and I think that is all that I have. I don't know if there's any questions for me.
Shannon, I have one quick question for you. In regards to like if people are in the emergency room, or let's say admitted to the floor and they're of legal age, even probably not even within the school system, they're still a DDS client. Can the hospital legally discharge them if there's no safe place to go? Because I've heard conversations coming up where that's where some of these families are told, we're going to discharge the person. And we've just said, no, get a hold of DDS and say, no, they can't just discharge them to the street, but this is what's coming at them.
We have had hospitals do the reverse, where a family wanted to take the person home and they didn't feel that they were safe enough, or there was a good discharge plan. So they've actually refused to discharge, and they've even had to use the probate system to help with that. So
Okay.
can they discharge them? I think they have to discharge them. I'm not familiar with the law, but it has to be a safe place. I mean, they can't discharge them to the street. There has to be a plan. But I know of two very recent cases where the family said, we'll take them home. And they're like, we're not
It's
okay
not
with this.
safe.
This person
Yeah.
needs more support.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's because the family doesn't want to accept some of the services that DDS can provide for in-home. And I
Mhm.
think sometimes the hospital may be using that to encourage them to accept some of those supports, start at the minimum and work up from that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's encouraging to know that at least they're advocating at that point. If they see that it would not
Yeah.
be a safe discharge, really.
And we're developing, unfortunately, because of the times, a lot of relationships with the hospitals, in particular Yale, because they have so many hospitals now. We're having more frequent meetings with them, where in the past we didn't, that wasn't in place. So we actually know the social workers by the first names now, and trying to work together, but it's a struggle because we don't have the resources.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's true.
Susan has her hand raised.
Hi, Susan.
Hi, I have a few questions about IP meetings.
Okay, I don't know. I hope I can answer them.
Um, okay, one question is in regarding the minutes that are written up. I call them minutes, but the packet, when the completed packet with
Mhm.
all the reports and the minutes and all that. Um, when is that supposed to be completed by for the parent or guardian to get?
I'm gonna have to get back to you, but I believe it's 30 days, but I wanna get the accurate information. So Eunice, if we could take note of that and I can follow up exactly. I've been away from that piece of the work for a while, but we'll get
Okay,
that
and the
information to you.
next question about IP meetings is if an individual has, let's say, twice a year meetings, can the parent or guardian request quarterly meetings?
Um, they could, I guess, is there a reason why?
Well, in
Is
this
there?
case, it's because the the things aren't being followed through that are supposed to that are agreed to at the meetings, and then it's a half a year before it gets addressed again.
Yes, they can certainly request it. I don't know if it would be a formal quarterly meeting versus a team meeting, but it almost sounds like that's a performance issue with a provider. Am I like is it the agencies not doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Um, yeah, yeah, that would be it.
Okay. Yeah. So it probably would be a different kind of format versus like how we used to have the 4 quarterly meetings, and then the annual meeting. Um, but that sounds like, is that in my region that you're having an issue in the West region, Susan?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Maybe we can talk a little bit further about that. But yes, we can certainly work to address that, whether it's a formal meeting or it's specific, dealing with that agency and setting benchmarks with them to make sure that things are getting done. I could have somebody do like a paper review to make sure if there's a certain task or program that's supposed to be done, an audit.
Okay.
So maybe what I could do is make contact with you next week sometime
Okay.
so I can get more details.
I have another question. This isn't for me. I'm asking this for somebody else. Um, someone is saying that day programs don't want to accept their individual who comes with a one-to-one for medical reasons. And I wondered why that is. Is it
I
because of insurance reasons? Because the one-to-one isn't hired by the agency? The one-to-one comes with the individual?
Is the
Or
one-to-one a residential staff that's going to the day program?
no, it's a private
Oh,
like hired from their budget.
And the agency's not letting this, that's interesting because I would think that they would welcome this support.
would.
It potentially could be a liability issue. I would be curious to know more about that as well. Because,
Okay, I'm just curious.
yeah,
So it's
Okay.
not costing the day program anything, right? You're
No.
sending it's coming out of the budget. You would think they would want that.
Well, given the staff shortages, but the only thing I could
Exactly.
think if there is, as Sue
Liability.
suggested, a liability issue,
Yeah.
somebody got
That's what I
injured.
was curious, yeah.
Yeah,
If it was,
That's-
might be that. Okay, thank you.
okay, thank
I'm
you.
finished, thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
All right. Any other questions for Shannon?
Great job, Shannon.
Thank you. We
Good,
do
really.
have the big meeting next month, Charles.
Mhm.
Okay, that's all the RACs together meeting.
Yes.
All right. And is the date and time set, Eunice? Is that?
I have to look it up. I did see it somewhere.
Yeah,
Okay.
Eunice, I think you sent it out.
Okay.
I want to say it's the 21st, but I don't know if I'm 100% on that. And if Charles, if I recall from last year, I think you or Maureen, I think it was Maureen did an overview for the West. And then I went through, what we had talked about, some of our, guests that we've had. I'm assuming it's going to be the similar type of format.
Yep. So 5 p.m. on the 20. My
Yes.
as 5 p.m. on the 21st.
21st. I have that too.
Yep,
Yeah.
I have
Okay.
that too.
Okay.
All right. And we could do the same format in terms of what we've done and conversations we've had. And we'll make sure, Shannon, that you get a good review from both.
Okay.
You know.
That would be nice.
All right. Any new or old business? I'm going to just combine the both right now. Anybody want to hear anything in particular? We've got GT sort of, I don't want to say under, maybe, we can go back and forth with Joe and maybe wait a couple of meetings before we beat him up again, and see where that all goes. Is there anything in particular anyone wants to hear about as it relates to DDS, etc.? And if so, just send an email to Eunice or myself or Shannon, as it relates to that. Public, that would be Christine. And I believe Adriana, although Adriana's driving, I'm not sure she's still on. And so any comments or questions, Christine?
Thank you for letting me attend. It has been very educational. I learn more from these things than anything else. I'm going to be a frequent flyer with you guys. I'd love to become involved. It's all a new area for me. We're not in this region, so this is all new for me. I know Susan. She's been an amazing ally and friend. I have a little bit of it in, but it's thank you.
All right, Adriana.
Charles, can I just one other thing? Jordan is doing his family forums again in the evening is one of them, and don't know the date off the top of my head. Eunice, maybe we can put that in the minutes as well. There's one in the early evening and one in I believe the daytime sometime in October coming up. So I mean, if anybody hasn't been to those are great forums. He often opens the floor up and you have his ear. So
There's one on October 21st between 10 and 11:30.
okay. Thank you. Thank you,
And
Christine.
there's one on the 24th between 5:30 and
Yep.
7.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so it's a great time to get his ear and hear what's going on in the department.
Excellent. All right. The public is now duly. 2 people have raised their hands. Shannon.
No, I didn't mean to. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. We'll forgive you this time. Shannon,
I forgot to unraise mine. Okay.
All right, and Susan is there. A hand is down. Adriana, I'm not sure if you're still on or not, but I assume still driving or not a good
Still
signal.
driving. Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay. Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. We will see everybody at the, well, if you can make the joint meeting, that'll be great.
Right.
And yeah, look forward to the joint meeting with the rest of the RACs. All right.
Okay.
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thanks, Chuck.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.